They are prepared to spend that much money. The above-mentioned American gentleman will hold a meeting tonight, and within 24 hours they will arrange a lawyer to be paid. So it seems I have to stay here longer to fulfill the desire of Srila Prabhupada. Even though they keep me in all kinds of convenience, still my mind is anxious to return to Vrindavan, and I am enthusiastic to see all of you. So here he was in the land of, major militias, and he was willing to stay, but, he was revealing his heart that my mind, in his mind, his heart, he was still anxious for Vrindavan, and he wanted to see all of you. Then he, a little further, he wrote, "Here, 15 educated boys have accepted discipleship from me, Shishwato. They have given up wine, meat, intoxication, marijuana, tea, coffee, eggs, etc. And they're honoring Krishna Prasadam given by me each day." So as you probably, recollect, in those early days, Srila Prabhupada was the shopper, the cooker, the cleaner, everything. And he was doing all of this with the hopes of pleasing his Guru Maharaj and spreading the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I would say he's been quite successful. So he can say, they've given all this up and they're honoring Krishna Prasadam, given by me every day. They never knew how to make dal, chapati, rice, spinach, milk, and fruits. But now, eating such prasadam, they are quite happy and are always attentively doing their service. Therefore, when these young boys are fully ready, vast preaching will take place in these Western countries through them. So, even now, we're not such highly advanced persons. So can imagine, almost 50 years ago when Prabhupada was seeing the potential and amplifying it. The vast preaching will take place through them. He wrote, I always remind them that I'm old. At any time, I may have to say Namaskar to Yamaraj. So you all try to understand this Krishna consciousness philosophy properly. Actually, this point he's making here, I am very old. I may say Namaskar to Yamaraj at any moment. Just a year after that letter, a little even less than a year, he had come to San Francisco, and in January of '67 he came. I was initiated at that time. And a short time later, a few months later, he had suffered a stroke. And he wasn't getting better, although there were so many efforts to improve his health, but it wasn't happening. So he determined the best thing would be for him to return to India, to Vrindavan. Even by the Oral Vedic standard, it is said that the best place for recuperation or recovery is one's own home. Because in one's home, you're familiar with the sights, the sounds, the smells, the foods, If you've ever been really sick in a foreign place, you know how hard it is. You're feeling weak, you're not well, and you cannot get the food that you require. You may not even be able to speak the language of the local people, so it impedes progress for recovery. So he came to our little temple in San Francisco, and he announced to us, and by us, I mean there was just a handful at that point in time. The room was, half the size of this space here, and just maybe, I would say maybe less than even half the amount of people were devotees at that time in San Francisco. So we're sitting, and he says to us, he told us he would be going, and we weren't still computing, we're just sitting there trying to compute that. And then he said, I'm an old man, I may die at any time. So that in itself was kind of Now now they're saying the ice water challenge. That was our ice water challenge. It was a shock. They wake up. We were sitting with him as in a mood that this was always going to go on and be like this. Us and Swamiji were a little tight little group. And every day, practically speaking, we heard a lecture about, it was like a mantra: birth, death, disease, and old age. So the death, the old age and the death part were just words to us. And we certainly never saw Swamiji as an old man. I'm this year 69, which is the year that Srila Prabhupada left. It was toward the end of his 69th because he turned 70 on the crossing. But nonetheless, same year. And, we didn't compute. He said one time, one devotee was seeing how his body had deteriorated, and he said, don't think that will not happen to you. Certainly when you're young, you're just not relating that much to disease and death. So suddenly, when he said that, I'm an old man, we didn't see him as an old person, as an old man. He was so vibrant and full of life, as they would say. So spirited, so joyous. And he said, I may die at any time, and we just could not, we were stunned. And then he continued, so I want you boys and girls to push on this movement. And another shock to us, because we hadn't really thought of ourselves as being in a movement. We were just, a tight-knit little family of people. We didn't even call ourselves the Hare Krishnas yet. So we realized, so of course, this is what's happening. We've got, our little temple in New York, we've got a little temple in San Francisco, we're trying to get books published, and we have our little magazine that was little more than these type of little papers, the back of the magazine were just, mimeograph papers. Still something was happening, and he wanted us to keep it happening. Now, in his presence, we all were fiercely overconfident of ourselves, because he was right behind us. He stood behind us. He told us, go out and preach. And we were like, what do we do? What do we say? And he said, you just repeat what you have heard from me. Don't subtract, don't add, just breathe, But he was there, so it gave us confidence. We would go out and approach people. And now, if he's not there, how could we have that same confidence? And we understood he wanted this movement to continue. There was a movement, and he was handing it to us. Just like someday you may hand your son the keys to the car, to the family, you're in charge of the family now. This is what happened to you, So he was handing us the keys to the movement. You have to be prepared. But we were stunned, and we didn't understand, how could we do this? It was not something we could see ourselves doing. We suddenly had a realization that our confidence was dependent on his presence, and we really didn't know as much as we thought we knew. So we knew in the past, Srila Prabhupada, Swamiji had requested some of his godbrothers to come and help him with the preaching. You can read about that in the little booklet that Ravinda Swarup wrote, which I will make sure you get when you drop me off. And you can read about it also on the internet, that he is asking godbrothers, come and help. Don't worry about it. You just come. I'll supply men and the money, and you just preach. These people are suffering for want of knowledge of Radha and Krishna. Nobody came. And in fact, some, indirect, we heard there were criticism. Well, Swami Bhaktivedanta has left India, and he's gone to the land of the Malachas. What is this? So, he was asked by one of the devotees that, there was no thought of replacing him. That wasn't the consideration. The consideration was, how can we push this mission on? We don't know enough. So the question was asked, Swamiji, is it all right in your absence if we request one of your godbrothers to come and help? To come and help us, to help teach us. So suddenly he became very, very still. We didn't have a proper Vyasa sign as later we would have, but there was a small platform with a cushion on top of it. And he became very still, and his back was very erect. So he replied to that question, can we ask one of your godbrothers to come and teach us in your absence? He said, my spiritual master was not an ordinary man. He saved me. And then he looked, he said, if even one person comes and changes even one word of what I have taught you, the whole thing will be spoiled. Now, why was that change? When first he was saying, please come, and now he was saying no. Because, unfortunately, he detected that there was some envy, and now that there was some success, they would be happy to come and take over, But Srila Prabhupada understood that even I wouldn't even say we were even neophytes, we were pre-neophytes, but still we had accepted him as our spiritual master, we had surrendered to serving him, and serving him meant advancing in Krishna consciousness and pushing on the mission. And he was giving us that order. So, actually in the Bhagavatam, it's also understood that one should never neglect the order of the spiritual master. And one should always be faithful or loyal to the spiritual master. And we could see by Prabhupada's reply that my spiritual master was not an ordinary man. He saved me. That his loyalty to the spiritual master was very clear. And when he saw that others were not ready to help step forward and take the risk to preach in the West, then, and only then, did he start a separate institution out of necessity, because you can't always sit under a tree in a park forever and, get things going. You can't print books staying under a tree. You can't hold daily services under a tree. So he understood that if anybody came now, that there was where were they when there was some struggling? If they were willing to come now, it would mean they had some ulterior motive. So he was protecting us, and he was confident enough in his little band of Western devotees and in the power of Lord Chaitanya's movement that even if he left, that we could carry on. By Krishna's mercy, he didn't leave, because probably we would have had a really difficult time carrying on. But it gave a very good lesson to us about loyalty to the spiritual master. When Dhruva Maharaj, he was speaking about his Guru Maharaj, Sri Narada Muni. And he said, I was simply falling into a deep well full of snakes. But my spiritual master, Sri Narada, enlightened me with spiritual knowledge and saved me. Therefore, how could I ever leave his service? So this is from the 7th Canto Bhagavatam, and we saw, like Prabhupada's own example. So that gave us a very strong guideline for the future in serving Prabhupada and serving the mission of Iskcon, that they were one and the same, practically speaking. And Prabhupada was so protective of us and his fledgling mission. So, and then on another letter he ended it by saying, make me whatever happens according to Krishna's desire is for the best. Make me happy by replying to my letter as soon as you receive mine, and give me news of Vrindavan. Then we get a little further insight. This is December of 66. And now the Dr. Godhead magazine was being published. You know, it's the simple version with the paper and a little stapled together. But it's going on. And he goes, I did not expect any help in regards to this from my godbrothers. I only begged a little cooperation from them. Even in that, I was unsuccessful. Certainly Srila Prabhupada, his guru, is helping me. Otherwise, how could an insignificant person like me have given 2 or 4 people a chance to become Vaishnavas? You know, such a humble mood and that complete unswerving faith in his spiritual master. Then he describes a little bit about the population. The general people here are all intoxicated and loafers. It is very popular here to impregnate women and then take them to the doctor and give them an abortion. This is common. They have no lamentation for this. You cannot imagine from there how difficult it is to make them accept good sadachara. That means behavior according to the scriptural injunctions. It is so much mercy from Srila Prabhupada that this kind of kirtan, Hindu, Purunda, Puraksha, low-born national people are taking up sadachara. They are giving up illicit relationships with women, intoxication, marijuana, tea, coffee, everything. Having given up meat, they are eating dal, chapati, rice, and are very happy. They do kirtan and harinam every morning and evening, and they do Sandhya prayers before Sri Mahaprabhu's picture. To honor the Guru Varga, as soon as they see me, they pay obeisances. I never expected so much. They are not foolish or inactive. Some are MA and BA, and they're earning 3,000 or 4,000 rupees per month. Most of them, at least 2 of them, give me all their money. That is why it's possible to spend so much. It's not possible to beg here. It is not possible to run a mat or a temple if money does not come from earnings. Here, it is not possible to go from door to beg rice and flour. Without notice, it's not possible to meet with any gentleman. It is necessary to make an appointment beforehand. Along with all this inconvenience, in this faraway foreign country, I am working alone, helplessly. My only hope is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I have no one else. In my house, my wife and son did not help me, so I left my home. I thought the godbrothers would help me, but even that I did not get. In my old age, I have taken so much risk, but not to fulfill any of my own desires. Srila Prabhupada has desired this work, and I'm trying to fulfill that desire according to my ability. Personally, I have no ability. My only hope is Srila Prabhupada. So if you help me in any way, know that it will certainly be all auspicious to you. So that last sentence was written to a particular person, but in reading that sentence, I am understanding he is meaning anyone who can assist. Know that it will be auspicious to you. So in your efforts here in Sacramento to serve Srila Prabhupada's mission, know that it will be all auspicious to all of you. That is by his own words.
So, Mother, these letters are not available for publication?
They're not on the internet. Anyways.
How about in the Bhakti Vedanta database?
No, they're not there. Yeah,
To whom?
So,
Yes, written.
anyways,
To whom? Yes, written.
just not so important. Then he expresses his gratitude and his gratefulness to his disciples. So this was in a letter of June of 67. But my disciples here are God-sent. They are all more than my father and mother, and they are taking so much care of me that I shall never be able to repay the debts. I hope to survive by the prayers of the boys, otherwise I would have died on the day when the stroke was so severe. All the boys in 3 branches in New York, San Francisco, and Montreal, they prayed for me. They prayed to Krishna and chanted the whole night. And they fasted. I can only express my gratitude for their sincere love of me, and I can only pray that Sri Krishna may bless them with advanced Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
So, I'm reading these, they're like it's very personal. And it just gives a little insight into the heart of Srila Prabhupada. And I wanted to share them because, just like he said, if you make this effort to help me, it will be all auspicious to you. So sometimes when we're in our own situations, wherever we may be, we may feel a little like lost, lonely, like does anybody know we're here struggling? But Prabhupada knows it, for sure he knows it, and your efforts will be auspicious. This last is very sweet. It is possible, this was in July 67, it is very possible that I will return to Vrindavan in the upcoming August. If Krishna keeps me alive, I will come back here, meaning to India. I had planned, to America. I had planned to preach so much here, but all the work is postponed due to my deteriorating health. Certainly the disciples are doing their best, but they need to learn a lot. If it is at all possible, Krishna bestows his mercy. At present, I'm anxious to return to Vrindavan. Here I stay in a palatial building. And actually where he was when he wrote this letter was in Stinson Beach. That was in Marin County, across the bridge, Golden Gate Bridge. But we had got this home, rented a place on the beach for him thinking, having the sea air, he could, recover nicely. So I stay in a palatial building. There are always 4 of them ready to serve me, and there's no one prasad, lodge, or any care. However, I still feel that he's telling how much opulence, and he goes, however, I still feel that my broken kutir without any opulence, bathing in the Yamuna, darshan of the temples, and the ripped cotton quilt of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are so very sweet. Yeah, just think of that, that I'm anxious to return. He's in a it's a nice place, but palatial building, and there's 4 of them ready to serve, no one prasad, no cares. But I still feel that my broken kutir, without any opulence, bathing in the Yamuna, darshan of the temples, and the ripped cotton quilt of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are so very sweet. Being so far from Vrindavan, I am realizing its Mahatmya. Mahatmya means greatness. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, as Krishna is to be worshipped, so is Vrindavan. Now I am somewhat realizing that. As Krishna is sweet, Vrindavan is similarly sweet. You bless me so that I can return to Vrindavan. I'm old now. I'm not afraid to die, but if my life there passes away in the lotus dust of the Vaishnavas in Vrindavan, then that would be very blissful. As soon as I am well, I want to return to Vrindavan. Then, if I feel better, I will return here and preach. So just see what he did. He was 67, and he went to Vrindavan, and he returned here to preach. Not giving any, people, it gives, of course we have to take care of our bodies and our health. I'm not suggesting that we don't. But our primary concern should be the fact that we need to make this our last time around in the material world and give some attention to our Krishna conscious development. And the best way we can do that is by serving the orders of the spiritual master and assisting Srila Prabhupada in this mission. This is definitely a preaching mission. It's not a social exercise. It's not, it's not, of course we get together, Sadhu Sangha, association of devotees, very important. But we should always keep in mind that as we enjoy our association, there's others out there that do not have association with Mahaprabhu in His holy name. And so we should be thinking, the Prophet would say, scheming, how can I extend this? How can I capture these fallen souls? And I don't think one day goes by that we don't see some depressing news from the news. Of course, I know good news doesn't sell very many, but I mean, really, frankly, the news is so depressing. And we can feel somewhat secure because we have our feet in the, partly, we're stepping into the spiritual world. We're going in that direction. But that's not good enough. The Vaishnava is never happy to see others suffering. To see others suffering gives them great pain. And Srila Prabhupada was such a wonderful example of that, because even after that devastating illness, why would he want to come back here? What could have possibly, been here? Just, you see how he described his broken kutir, the river Yamuna, his tattered quilts of the Vaishnavas. That was his treasure, the dust of the Vaishnavas. But he put aside that treasure to come to extend the mercy to ourselves and yourselves and the future generations. So it's incumbent upon us. We have accepted the gift. If we take something out of the store and we don't pay, it's called shoplifting. You can be arrested. So in the same way, we've accepted something, so we have to pay for it. And the best way we can pay for it is through our enthusiasm and our attempts and our endeavors to try to assist in pushing on this movement. Thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions or points that you might want to bring up.
I have a question. Thank you for your wonderful class, Mataji. I was wondering, as a small congregation here in Sacramento, you've been here several times, right? Over the years.
My good fortune.
Thank you very much for coming. Well, as you see here, what can we improve on? Like, as a small group here, you can give us some instructions regarding how we can.
Well, I only see you here. So, it would be a little presumptuous without spending more time with you and seeing what are you doing outside of here and how are you doing it. But, the basics are there. There's the interpersonal spiritual development, and then there's the communal spiritual development, and then there's the exterior and how can we get out. So I understand that you, Vaisheshika, has been here, and that you started distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. That's just wonderful news. We don't have any way of knowing where these books will end up, whose lives they're going to touch. But rest assured that every book goes out will find a home eventually. And whether it's that very day or 30 years down the line, because there are stories like that about the books being there, and then one day, 30 years later, the person, picks up a book that her mother had got from somebody on the street or in the airport or wherever, brought the book home, sitting there. Mother's gone, book is still there. Person picks it up and just, oh my God, this is a treasure, and it's been right on our shelf all the time. So we don't know. We just have to have the faith that if we do this book distribution, we are assisting Mahaprabhu's mission. Harinam Sankirtan, Prasadam distribution, festivals, these are all ways of doing some active type of propagation. And also I would say developing good relations among yourself. Because should someone come, we do hope we get out there and somebody comes, and if they come and they don't, have a sense of family or, you can tell I mean, I don't sense that here, but I'm just saying when you go to some place and you see people are very loving to each other and affectionate and friendly in their dealings, you're attracted. Because outside, out there, it's just so harsh. And I had one godbrother was asking him, how did he come? So he was in school, and he was in his final in college, so it was his final exam, and he would get his degree.